Hello. All right, it's 6:30 right now. How far are we into it? About 50 hours? 51 hours, pretty close. Hey, we just ended our 48-hour race at noon, and it's 6:22, so 51 and a half hours. What's been going on in this arena for the last 2.5 days?
Lack of sleep.
Lack of sleep. Yes. Lack of sleep for about everybody. I'm here with our evaluators and our observer controller. This is Jack Poland. I've been in charge of moving the teams around, the evaluator teams, and watching everybody out here. It's Ed Weiler, EJ Stiefvater, and I just lost him. I'm very sorry.
Katie
Stiefvater. So we have been up for a long time. Okay, so been evaluators, been our core evaluator team for the whole 2.5 days that we've been out here. So when we started out here with a 24-hour arena, what did you see the tendencies from the very beginning? When the teams were coming through and they stepped out of here, BJ and Katie, you guys were one of the very first ones to get hit. And that was our pistol and first aid, very dynamic movement in Jake, or MS-13. When you saw the teams coming through there, when you first started out, what was their demeanor like?
Well, it's interesting because unlike the last time from last year, it was definitely defining this year. It was interesting because there was a wide spectrum of age groups, and the older people are some of the people who did it last time, who were older. It was much more methodical, much slower. There was a lot of younger, newer people that were here, and they were just all out at the beginning. And when they get to the last half of the stage, they're barely able to finish because of that big burst of energy off the bat with that wanting to tackle it right away.
What was your stage? Because you both ran it together. What did it consist of? What did they have to do?
When they initially got to the staging area, they dropped their pack. We were given an instruction when there was only one arriving at a time. They were given their instruction on what kind of firearm and ammunition they would need, how much, and how many magazines. They would go up to the ready area, which would get them at a position of a point of fire. They were given safety rules on handling their firearm and what we expected of them with their safety. And then they ran through the scenario. It started out with two hanging targets. They needed 2 shots each. I've been at a couple of them, trying to get this one straight. They had to drag a Jake 75 yards.
Yeah, between 50 and 70 between all of them, roughly, I would say.
Do another shooting with their pistol, which at this point would include a magazine change for everybody. They had 3 hanging targets. They had to get 2 shots at each center to hit the threats in the scenario they were given, and then drag the Jake again to a pallet where they had to apply. They were given words that said, your Jake is bleeding out. It was a gas station attendant was bleeding out. They needed to verbalize or show that they could do basic first aid, apply tourniquet and pressure. They drug the Jake to another area where they needed to contact 2 more targets with 2 more rounds, and then they drug the Jake to its final place for that team member where they had to do 2 minutes of CPR. So it was physical, shooting scenario, physical scenario. I think they're all 3 of them with the mental included rolled into one. This was just mostly a shooting scenario, but I think they're all of them.
I agree. Yeah, it's pretty dynamic. What did you guys see with the CPR? I mean, with that added in with the 2 minutes of chest compressions at the end, what kind of dynamic did that add to the overall experience?
I think a realization of what 2 minutes feels like when you're counting it.
I would agree.
Every single person said, "Are you watching the clock? Are you watching the clock?" It's got to be 2 minutes, and after like 45 seconds.
Yeah.
You can see, instantly they would fatigue within the first 30 seconds because of what they've already been doing. Where a normal person maybe be 5 to 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was right away, and it would just degrade down really quick. They said they liked it. Everyone who finished it. In fact, some of the people said they felt better when they finished it because they've been walking to that one. So
yeah,
to get their feet moving in a different fashion and the blood flowing again, especially when it was cold, and where we were at that one, it was actually raining, so
Yeah.
warmed everything up and got the button. Most of them absolutely.
So our weather for that one was unexpected, really, from the beginning. But it played a big role. I mean, for what you saw, Jack, if we were tracking teams out here, how did the weather affect?
Trying to keep them dry. See them just covered up a bit more than they'd be sweating.
Yeah.
It was hot and covered up. There's a little bit of mist and light mist, and some places it was snowing. Like there was cold and light snow over there.
Yeah.
Nothing more accumulation. And now that we're here on the highway, the other teams were just a rain.
Yeah.
Just barely. One night, one side of the property, the other side of the property.
Yeah. That's really interesting too. And then the wind too. I mean, as far as like going up in the canyons too, they were moving a little bit differently because they're going up and down. But it sheltered a lot of the wind as opposed to the people down south that got the full brunt of the moisture at the same time. The lowest we got was 36 degrees that I counted that first night of the 24. So I believe played a big dynamic, big role in a lot of the team's degradation throughout. See a lot of fatigue happening fast. So Ed, you started out at warehouse robbery. So why don't you walk us through what your scenario was?
So this was a shooting scenario that incorporated shotgun and pistol. The scenario was a worker at a warehouse that the warehouse had been broken into. The guy was shot, and you had to drag the co-worker through the hallway and engage a total of 6 targets with your pistol and a total of 4 knockdown targets with your shotgun. Again, it was primarily a shooting engagement, but there was a lot of physical work there because there was moving a Jake. It was one of the heavier Jakes. So there's also a sled that was kind of laying beside it. I noticed that about maybe only a third of the teams that came through there realized that they should put it on the sled to make it easier.
Yeah.
Most of them just saw it, figured a way to grab it, and
Just pull it, muscle it down.
Yeah.
That's very interesting because we built a litter for that. Just because of the weight of the Jakes. The Jakes are about 200 and 215. They're very heavy. You know, I mean, even us having to put that in out there, it's like, oh, we want to make this doable, you know. Because when you think about it too, though, I mean, what are you at?
175.
75, or 180, 180,
210.
210. We don't really.
Enough.
I'm 160, you know, and that's kind of what, like your Jakes up there, they're about 145, 150. I mean, that's a dead weight. What if you were unconscious? Or you were unconscious, you were unconscious. You know, it's all the same. So to get that up there, though, just to kind of fit with the physical side of our shooting scenario, we constructed a litter and set it off to the side to see if anybody would use that. And if you guys have noticed in a lot of the Jake scenarios, we also have poles out there.
Yeah.
And they can utilize either as a litter for that, or you can make a frame. They have materials so you have for packing this. But I think that's very interesting that only maybe a third, thought to use that as a total litter. So when you saw the teams come through, I know that we were doing some new things in this arena. We're transporting teams around. And you started out with, well, how many teams did you start out with to begin with?
How many teams had come through there?
Yeah, for the first part of the 24 hours.
We were a little bit further down the road in the arena, so those folks had some time and some miles on by the time they got to us. So we probably saw, maybe close to half of the 24-hour people, maybe not even quite that many.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there for rough numbers.
We saw a lot of them move forward. Really, I mean, just about all of them started at your station.
Yeah.
We had a nice pile of them, but you alleviated that problem.
Yep.
And we were full of surprise tactic time.
Yeah, and it worked too, because when you think about it, that's our goal out here. We want to create this experience for them, for the competitors to go through. That's something that's very relevant to our lives and something they can lean on it, but it's still challenging in a way that when you're done with it, there's a big feeling of accomplishment and confidence as we move on to the next scenario, the next point. We're sitting there for an hour, and that kind of takes that away. So we did some new things out here to keep our arena moving forward, and it seems to be successful. You know, I mean, as far as the teams go, and it also gives a little more diversity to our arena, because we have a mountain terrain and then we have a high desert terrain. Both are uniquely challenging in and of themselves. You know, so, yeah. So what do we see at night, Jack? We're kind of moving everybody around, and we got to get a bigger view of the arena.
I don't know, some of them were kind of wandering around, not knowing exactly where they were.
Mm-hmm.
They were playing fence and cross over it, and you have to find out.
Yeah.
Rerouted.
Yeah. We had several that were off the boundaries of our arena at night, and that's very easy to do. Mm-hmm. At night, especially, the navigation is difficult. When you guys moved up further north, as later on as the trial was unfolding, because you're really at the top, one of the last scenarios that the teams and the solos were encountering. What did you see, like typically as the physical state of the teams and also the mental state of the teams?
At the last one we were at?
Yes, sir.
Well, we only had the one.
You guys
one
were
team that came through.
okay. Yeah.
CRNG. And they were just like they started out. I mean, but they're experienced. It's not their first time.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. And only one of them had sore feet, and other than that, they just wanted to sleep. But they were in good spirits and joking and laughing and having a good time. So
CRG is our 72-hour team. They're actually out on the course right now down south, if you're looking on your map there. But
the ones before that were different when we were over where it was snowing.
yeah.
They would had a completely different attitude. They, one of them didn't want to be there no more. They were pretty much at the end of the rope.
Yeah.
The other ones were trying to convince each other how to keep going. Because of the cold and the snow, and they were slowing down instead of moving faster. Desperation in both the teams at that point with that one.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think it's really neat how even we see teams and solos pairing up where they would help each other out in that way, like just another half an hour, just keep moving forward one step in front of each other. You know, and they're competing against each other out here, but
They don't act like
Yeah.
that.
I've never seen it.
yeah, I mean our level, the competition is different. You know, the definition of competition is different.
Yes.
So that's amazing.
I'm stepping out a little bit more with the warm enough. Not quite hot with it,
Yeah.
a little bit warm enough. You notice when they walk by the stages when it's snow and cold and rain, walking with the roof down, they walk right by the stage and you don't even see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And several that do that.
Just existed at that point. Just keep you moving to get through that portion. We had some people in water obstacles during that time, but not quite before nighttime. They would start to go off. We had slow motion. I ran slow motion through and Farscape through our barrel rider scenario, and that's off one of the dams. And you know, I think it's really neat to watch the level of enthusiasm. When you see something in front of you that you know is going to be physically demanding and painful. I don't mean painful like hurt, but now we're cold and we're outside, we've been running around. Now we're going to get in the water, and I know that tonight's going to be cold. I'm starting that wet. And to see that enthusiasm to hit it hard and to do well with it, and then to get dressed and just continue on. Because we saw them later down at our parent trap. What were their like slow motion Farscape? What would you say their enthusiasm level were at? It was roughly what 2 a.m.
Yeah, I think especially slow motion. You know, I think they were probably as strong and ready to go as they'd ever been through the day. They tackled, and again, that was a pretty physically demanding.
What was it? What was that?
That was Parent Trap, Helen?
Yes, sir.
So that was a scenario where someone had broken into a home like your home, started the place on fire. You had to engage pistol targets with them in a couple different places. You had to rescue your infant child and also your unconscious wife. And part of that was the unconscious wife, of course, was a Jake, and the infant was like a, what do you say, 30 to 40 pound sandbag, something like that. They had to drag both the infant and the other simultaneously instead of one at a time. That took a little thinking, a little engineering. One person at a time could do it. They couldn't help each other. And followed by a couple minutes of CPR at the end. So it involved, both shooting and a lot of physicalness. Those two individuals really knocked it out of the park, I think.
Yeah, I would agree.
Farscape, when he showed up, he was in pretty good spirits, but I could tell he was pretty worn down.
Yeah.
He was, the nighttime and the day before was starting to kind of catch up on him a little bit. Still completed it with very good time. He timed all the events. He had very good time and very good efforts, but I could tell he was starting to get a little tired.
Yeah. Farscape, he tackled the barrel rider by himself as a solo. So both of that team and that solo, they had swam across the dam. And I'm going to post a video of them, just how far they had to swim. And they had to push a raft made out of barrels on a pallet with a jake strapped down. I'm not a strong swimmer. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a strong swimmer. That would have worn me out. And then to pick up and have to walk down, 4 miles down to the next. So very, very, very tough. So our 24 hours, that went by kind of in a flash, didn't it? For me anyways, that 24 hours was here and gone. Then we moved into 48 hours. So we lost, six teams? We lost 5 teams to the race itself. We pulled out. 5 competitors, 5 either solos or 2-person teams. So we ended that with 6 in a 24-hour race. So that moved us into the 48-hour race where we had Trigger One and
Possum
Fat. Thank you. So where did they start out? Possum Fat.
I think they were going to start out at MS-13 until we pulled the.
I was gonna say, I think we saw them.
Yeah, they
For
were
a brief moment. We had 6, 7 teams all there right at once until 3 were distracted. And I believe they were among the ones that.
You moved Trigger One down to our physical obstacle 5.
And we went down to the warehouse.
Okay, which was your scenario.
Yeah.
And you ran them through as a solo, right?
Right.
A piece, and so they each had to pull that jake and then engage with their shotgun and then move over and engage with their sidearm.
That's right.
On that back. And you took Trigger One. Where'd you put Trigger One? You put him at Go Get It. That's our physical obstacle by the lake. And that one there, CRG just completed that physical obstacle. But if you get there, you cannot leave. You can't leave without doing the obstacle and still keep all your points.
That one there has a dedicated, if you walk away from this one without doing it, all points accrued and started to
Start from
so that's
scratch.
one of the surprise stages as far as that.
Yeah. And Trigger One?
Peeled off, went right to it, hopped in, got out, on his way again, kept on going.
That's Trigger One all throughout that race was very, very aggressive. I mean, there's always a tendency to slow down and take more time. They had 2 hours they could be stationary for. So I mean, you can use some strategy in there to move. And both of them didn't really do that. There are times where you have to stop, so your body's going to shut down. But for the most part, Trigger One and both Possum Fat, they just kept moving. What did you guys see with Possum Fat?
So we encountered both of those guys multiple times yesterday, and Possum Fat especially had a lot of drive to finish that. And I think that all in all, some of his land nav skills were maybe not exactly what he wanted them to be.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't trust his land nav skills as highly as some of the other competitors. But I don't think that slowed him down any. Certainly didn't change the fact that he wanted to finish strong.
Yes.
And have a good showing of it, which I certainly think that he did.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Possum Fat learned how to land nav about 2 days before the race began. And a lot of the times, I don't know about his firearms, but he wasn't really familiar with what he was shooting. So he would get out and, he would learn what he was doing or figure it out as it was happening. That is extremely impressive. And I came up and met him this morning, and make sure he had water and stuff, because he had been moving all night. But if you had been watching him on the tracker, he'd been kind of stuck on a river, or Canadian river down south. So he was trying to find a way around so he wouldn't get wet. That's really what he was thinking. But that meant that he was going out in, and walking. So for him to step into a 48-hour race like this, that's physical as far as the nature of walking, like distance-wise, and then our scenarios on top of that, because they're not easy. Physical obstacles and scenarios, they're not easy. And then to not be 100% confident in what you have to do out here. That's a very brave individual. So
I think that shows a lot of the variabilities that you have to encounter in this race, which is probably very unique to it. Not only do you have to be in shape and have a lot of endurance, because you'll be hiking, you may be running, you may be swimming, but you need to be strong in those areas, but you also have to have strong navigational skills. You have to be able to find yourself on a map, know where your heading is, to find these spots, because they don't know where they're at. They have to go navigate themselves to it. It's going to be daylight, it's going to be nighttime. Not only that, you have to be strong with firearms. You have to be a good marksman, because you're limited on your number of rounds. So there's strategy involved with that too. So there's a lot of things that a person has to negotiate to do this well.
Yeah, I agree with that. So when we saw our 48-hour teams and we just extracted them this morning, what would you say like their state of mind and physical state was? We saw them this morning.
The state of mind was still go. They were ready to keep on moving. Their feet were starting to get sore.
Yeah.
They were blistered in some of them. And they started to do more limping.
Yeah, Trigger One especially. We saw Trigger One. He was talking about staying on for 72 hours, which would have been awesome. And I agree with. I think the mind was willing, but the body was kind of slowing down. So, but if 48 hours is nothing to shake a stick at. So.
And those two, when I was not long ago at the competitor housing, they were coming in, and asked to pull up the tracker. And what they're curious of is how far they walk.
Yeah.
And Trigger One was 76 point something, and Awesome Fat was 58.4, 54.8, something like that.
Yeah. That's amazing for 48 hours.
It is.
48 hours.
His average was in 4 mile an hour is what the tracker was.
Yeah.
No, Trigger One. Yeah.
And that's something too that's kind of unique about this race is you can track as a competitor and anybody at home how far, how fast, what your waypoints were, like stopping points, how often you stopped, and like you mentioned, the average travel speed of yourself as a competitor on the trackleaders.com map, which right now is embedded into the survival trial site, but we keep track of all of them, so you can look back or you can look back at time. You can actually replay the whole arena. Our arena is still moving right now. So where are we at? We're 6 hours, just about 7 hours into our the finishing 72-hour race. We got CRG down south. I saw CRG this morning, and they were walking up where you guys were and holding to market. You want to kind of talk about that scenario and the state of CRG at that time?
Sure. Well, the scenario, there's water again. The scenario was the streets had flooded. Criminals had taken up firearms and then basically defend or take out the targets that were 200 yards away from where the firing point was, which was on the other side of the water. So had to navigate that, get through the water with their firearm to the shooting position, engage all the targets, and then come back. And it was a relay, so it was timed. Both competitors had to do that. It was interesting they were real methodical of how they did things. They were very slow, very careful. But it was interesting when they were arranging things and working with their equipment. Because they're experienced, they've been here before, they know their equipment. And one of the competitors had a lot of trouble hitting anything. And the other one had no trouble at all.
Yeah.
And we get done, and they're talking back and forth as they're trading between who's going to go next about ranges and what they think's going on. And both of them had two different ideas, and so that was kind of interesting. It was great because it was the heat of the day. It was hot. The water wasn't cold anymore. It was warm.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to pull a Jake, so they didn't have to run.
Yeah.
So they loved it. They thought it was awesome.
When they were done, they said that was their favorite. We kept saying, "What was your favorite? What have you encountered any other?" We didn't want to give any information away, but have you encountered any water yet? and they hadn't. And so usually the other competitors had gotten up to the water scenarios, and they're like, oh man. But they were happy to see the water. They hadn't seen any yet, and they had quite a hike, and so it was refreshing to them. They said that was their favorite scenario they'd encountered.
And it was interesting when they came up and said, they asked if anybody had ran it, and we said, no, you're the first. And they said, we've been hearing that everywhere we go, which is different because the other competitors, that would come in some of the other scenarios, already knew what was going to happen there.
Yeah.
From encountering other people, and they'd say, they would trade information about what was going on where and all that, which is a different aspect of it.
It is. We started 72-hour teams north. If you notice, when the race kicked off, in the top portion of the arena. So then the 24-hour team started down in the middle, but actually right here in the Shotgun Center, the Area Whittington Center. So we had the teams coming down this way, while the teams were filtering up this way, and they passed each other along the way, and they were passing information out.
Once one scenario's been done, nothing's a secret anymore.
Yeah.
It seems like they all knew something about
Yeah.
each.
Yeah, because like the blinded physical obstacle, where they had to build a 3-sided shelter, there were several of them that were like 5-6 minutes for their time frame to build it, because they knew they got information from people coming up on how to do it quickly. I think that's fantastic. But that kind of goes back to what the survival trial is and what this competition is. Yes, it's a competition, and yes, there's going to be a winner. We're going to tally up the points, and there will be a first survivor here. But nobody really approached it that way. Like, I'm going to be the winner.
Yeah.
They just approached it as, this is a great experience. That was very good. All right, well, I just talked to Zeke. Zeke's moving up. I just posted some pictures. And Zeke his plan is to try to pick up some of the bonus areas. He'll be the only team or only person to do that. I sent out rewards for the first task, which was the bio. What that is it was a grid coordinate of Little Canyon. There's a windmill up by 2 water tanks. And on top of the windmill, they have to climb up the windmill, there's a sign that they can see it, hopefully. But I sent a picture of the windmill and the coordinate of that location about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So they had that coming in here, whether or not they decided to take it with them. They have to climb up the windmill, and at the top there's a wooden area around where the motor is on the windmill itself. There's a totem up there. There are clay pigeons that are painted green with the name on it. And they'll now, with part of their reward, they'll pick up their totem and carry it with them till the end of the race. And with that, they'll get points for it, and they also get a hoodie sweatshirt that is sponsored and provided by Triple I Design as a reward for the first task prize. But like everything that we have here, nothing is given. They will have to work for that. There's only one person that's really been trying for that. That's Zeke. Zeke hit it coming down. Now he's going to hit it again coming back. Then we have the golden, and I bet he will. We'll try to be there when he does too. But then we also have the golden basket. Where's the golden basket?
Up on a high part of the property. They have to work to get up. They either climb up or they have to walk 3 miles in, 3 miles back.
Yes.
So it's free and good.
The golden basket are 2 590 Flex Series shotguns from Mossberg that have been sponsored and donated by Mossberg, so mossberg.com. So our golden basket, that's our prize in our arena, and that's about a 3-foot by 2-foot chest, painted gold. What's the weight of that?
The box by itself is 18 pounds. So I matched it with the weight I put in, so it's about 36 pounds. It's light.
Light. But that's true, though, that it is light. This is 2 firearms that are in there, 2 shotguns, 2 590 Flex Series shotguns. So that means an additional 36 pounds. What do you think their loadout is? I think that they're packs.
About 40 to 45 on some of them, just the basics.
Yeah. I would say Zeke's going to be that, anywhere from 50 to, I don't think he's over 55 pounds. I think he's going extremely light. But he's a very smart competitor, too. So that would add another 36 pounds to it, because once you pick that up, you can't put it back down again, however you decide to carry it. We've had people drag it behind them with a rope in the past, so they're not actually pulling it or pulling down on them, they're pulling it forward. Which, I don't know, that's a whole other set of muscle groups that you can be looking at right there. So
The box has held up pretty good.
it has. It has. Same one, too. So that's his plan. He's going to head up that way, and then he's going to go up to Elk Cabin. Elk Cabin was our Evolve scenario that That was yours by design. So hopefully you'll get up there within the time, because that's open from 6 a.m. till, excuse me, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Yeah, 8 to 6 p.m. And then in this case, it would be 8 to noon, so every 4-hour window. And he's looking at coming back down, maybe considering his other scenario there. One of our defensive training areas actually designed by you, BJ, as our guardian, your guardian scenario. That you, when we had the jig where you're in the mall and you had to load up your casualty or respond with your sidearm, and then load up your casualty, and in this case, you pushed our vehicle forward to continue on with our physical obstacle, but it all revolved around a real-world aspect of our lives, an assault that took place in the middle of a public area in a parking lot. In this case, it was a shopping mall. And then they had to perform, again, 2 minutes of chest compressions. The first aid portion of that. Because what's your background?
I'm a paramedic. I've been for almost 12 years. I own and operate an ambulance service, and that's kind of all I do.
So yeah, that's your life.
That's how I start.
So that was a very well put together scenario. Yours too. What was yours, Jack?
Evolved.
What did it consist of?
Kind of prehistoric.
Yeah.
Compared to when they come out and carry automatic pistols and rifles and that, here they have to throw a tomahawk and shoot a bow, hold it straight on, hold it there, long neck. You know, then they get carry a sandbag the whole time they're doing it, the whole time they set it down and shoot the ball. And they can put the rifle on, use it as a rest, but then they get the precision rifles at the end stage.
So it's evolving up in technology-wise. So very cool, very great, very good job for someone who's been All right, so we're getting calls right now. You just heard that from our evaluators who are down south of CRG. They just completed physical obstacle number 5. Go get it. And that's what we're talking about. They get in, they show up, they have to do it, or they lose all the points that they've accrued up till now. So it's got wet again, and we're heading into night. The winds are blowing, and it's going to drop down in temperature. I don't think we're going to have precipitation like we did the first night out there. But still, I mean, when you get tired to the point, your body will start to hurt. Your skin will start to hurt. So it'll be a challenging night for everybody, but it's the last night. We're very excited to watch these competitors move forward. All right, so thank you again, Jack, Ed, BJ, and Miss Katie. Thank you for being here, and thank you for working so hard. We'll be back here with our next, probably in middle of the night, live update here in 5 or 6 hours to give everybody an update of where Zeke and Team CRG are in this 72-hour STA Sundowner. So stay tuned and join us then.